into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a good show ahead today, folks. You know, I got to read a really good book this weekend, and I had good weather for it too. Sitting out on the porch this weekend, it was myself and my little trained chipmunks, and we were reading this weekend a book in which I'll tell you, it's called Beyond the Headlines, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Jeff Ignatowski is our guest today. And the interesting thing about this book, and the thing I liked about this book, is it might have dealt into subjects that we've dealt with before on the show, but it did it in an interesting way. And I'll have Jeff explain when we bring him onto the program here what he did with this book that was so unusual. And you remember the game Two Truths and a Lie? He kind of does that with myths and legends, with some of the most famous killers in history. And he has plans for other books to go into some killers and serial killers that aren't so famous. We'll talk about that as we get into today's program. Jeff is a fascinating person. I want to tell you a little bit about him before we bring him in. Jeff Ignatowski owns Scorpion Lair Games and is the creator of the best-selling Killers, the card game. He received most of his psychology training while working 12 years with the Department of Juvenile Justice in Kentucky, and as a corrections officer, he now travels and speaks on serial killer psychology and various other topics and writes for several magazines. Let's bring him in now and let's get this thing underway, because we got a lot to talk about today, especially about this book and the topics within the book. Let's welcome in now to True Crime Tuesday, Jeff Ignatowski. Jeff, welcome in.
Hey, how's it going, Tim? Great to be here.
Great to have you, my friend. First of all, the book, wonderful book, and we'll get to the subjects in the book here in just a moment. I got to tell you, I love the concept of the book. You took a game that we played in childhood, and you took it and placed it into myths and legends as far as some of the more famous killers in history. And then Two Truths and a Lie, you made it into, is it 3 myths and a legend? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's it. So, you know, it's funny. Of course, obviously, I have a gaming company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of true crime gaming. But on top of that, I just love the whole genre, right? And so, you know, I wanted to cover things, you know, and I thought, well, you know, we've all read about these stories and we've all seen all the documentaries and all of that stuff. But when I wrote the book, I wanted to really get back down to like the root of everything. And, you know, there's documentaries coming out every other week, right, on Netflix and Hulu and all of this stuff. And I really wanted to remind people that those documentaries often are only from one opinion. Whoever the person that wrote it, or whoever the person that, you know, did all the research, all of that stuff is coming from their opinion. It's not necessarily true. And I think we make the mistake a lot of times of just taking it at face value and then believing that that is the truth. So when I decided to write Beyond the Headlines, you know, I really wanted to give that to people. I wanted people to see that there were a lot of these common beliefs that we have about these famous crimes that are, they may be true, but they also may not be true. Or they may evolve over time because we learn more evidence, we change our opinions, and ultimately the whole book is centered around making sure that you actually dig in, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you just don't take things at face value. So a lot of the book is very ambiguous, right? I write it in a way where I present evidence to people, but I don't always give them my opinion. Now, there are some obvious moments in the book where I have very strong opinions, and I let them be known. But for the most part, I try to leave it up to the reader to decide what they believe is true. And I even put in there, like, message me, like, send me. If you have a different viewpoint, let me know. Why do you believe what you believe? And I think it's a fascinating conversation. If we really want to study and we really want to understand history, because that's what this is, right? This is history.
Yeah.
This is things that have happened in the past, good or bad. It's history that we need to remember. And we need to remember the lessons that come from that history. And I think a lot of people miss that sometimes. We have two different types of people that come to true crime: the people that want to stick their head in the sand and pretend like it never happened, or the people that jump in and want to devour every piece of true crime material out there. Obviously, I'm in one of those camps. And but I think it's important that everybody understands the things that have happened. And if we do that, more forensics comes out, more better investigative techniques. People develop this stuff because they have such an interest in the field. If there's no interest and we just hide from all of it, we never get better things. We just get worse stuff.
You brought up an interesting point here and in the book, and that is that we get a lot of books that cover a lot of surface stuff. They don't get too deep into the subject. We get a lot of, this was the crime and that was it. And in this book, you really do get deep into the subject. In fact, it's not too deep. There are some books that, and they're few and far between, but they do hash out a nice cursory detail into the crime, or they really do get into, sometimes I like to call it character work, right? I mean, that's what you call it in the screen world or whatever. You get a good idea of the circumstances around what happened with the scenario that we're dealing with. And a lot of times you need to know the circumstances around a scenario in order to figure out exactly why things happened the way they happened, not just who, what, when, where, why, like you would a newspaper article, but you really do need to know the circumstances to figure out the true motive behind a crime and why it would have happened that way. Because a lot of times, and there's a few instances in this book and a few of the crimes in this book where you bring up like, say, police misconduct. And you think to yourself, okay, with police misconduct, you can easily see where someone might get tagged wrongly because maybe they don't have the right circumstances, right? Or they might not grasp the crime correctly, or they may be getting the wrong information. So in order to have everything correctly, you've got to know the circumstances around everything. So you're informing the reader just the right amount. And that's I'm kind of taking the long way around there, Jeff. But in order to get the right circumstances about the crime, you have to get the right amount of information. And a lot of times, and this is no slam on anybody in particular, and I'm not doing that in this case, but you have to have the right amount of information when you're sitting down, especially as a reader of anything or studying any case. You have to have the right amount of information on any case in order to figure out what it is you're looking at. And if you're just studying the guts and gore of a crime, what are you really getting? You're getting the thrill, and you're not really getting the meat and potatoes of what it is you're looking at,
For sure. Yeah, I think I think that there is a delicate balance, right? At least the way that I write, I always want to give people the ability to dig even further, right? Because I want them to have their own experience. I don't want them to just take me at face value and, that guy, Jeff, he knows everything. I never want that to be the case. I want people to dig in. I want them to challenge me. I want them to say, hey, I believe that this is correct and this is why, because it is those critical thinking skills that we sorely lack in a lot of areas of life currently, right? And if we continue on that path, it leads to disaster when people can't, think critically about the things that they believe. If they don't challenge their own belief systems, they never grow. So, I really wanted to do that in this area of true crime. And the overarching part of this book that I haven't even gotten to yet because I started with serial killers. The overarching idea is that I wanted people to understand that true crime is not just serial killers,
Yeah.
right? Of course, I had to start out with that because it's the thing that everybody jumps into first, and I had to draw interest to the book. But ultimately, if I go out and shoplift at a store, by definition, I have committed a true crime, right? If I speed down the highway, I have committed a true crime. It happened in real life, which makes it true, and
Hmm.
it broke the law, which makes it a crime.
Hmm.
So, people, I think, tend to forget that true crime encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses, the mafia. It encompasses, grand theft. It encompasses cults and religions and all kinds of aspects. And I really wanted to get into all of that. But what I found is I got about to chapter 5 and I was 30 plus thousand words in, and I realized there's no way in hell I can do this in one book.
Yeah.
So we had to break it up into volumes so that it was more bite sized and more manageable for people. I did not want to create an encyclopedia,
Right.
not to start out with. We could do that later, but and that's also why kind of the book is set up the way that it is. It's done in small chunks, which allows people to process it
Hmm.
and do more research. So at the end of all the chapters, I give a piece where they can um, trying to think what I call it in the book, but where they can go and get additional research and they can look further. I cite a bunch of different podcasts that I personally listen to, other books about the subject from some famous authors and stuff, where they can really dig in even further than I went, because there's so many people that have written incredible works about all of these subjects, but I wanted to highlight some of the things that we have common misconceptions about. So I really, really jump into that.
The and I'll just quickly name the serial killers you have in the book here, and then I want to talk a little bit about your background quickly, and then we'll jump into some of these serial killers here. Elizabeth Bathory, Jack the Ripper, Herman Mudgett, which hhholmes and we're well familiar with Jeff Mudgett on this program. We've had him on this program quite a few times. Um, uh, Lizzieborden, Ed Gein, the Zodiac Killer, Johnwaynegacy, which we had Gacy's last lawyer on the program just a few months ago. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Dennis Rader. Now, Jeff, in the book, you state, and this is fascinating because you brought up the mob. You stated that you do have some mob ties in your family. You want to get to the mob eventually in one of these volumes. Tell people a little bit about some of the mob ties in your family and why the mob is so fascinating to you. I find this so fascinating. Please tell my audience a little bit about it.
So I grew up right outside of Philadelphia. I currently live in Cincinnati, but originally I'm from Wilmington, Delaware, right? And I am half Filipino, a quarter Polish, and a quarter German. But I grew up. I was born in 1980, so I grew up through this whole culture of the ethical mafioso, right? And half of my family is all Italian. They're all married in, but they all own restaurants in that tri-state area there. And you have New Jersey, you have Pennsylvania, and you have Delaware. And so they owned all these restaurants. Well, in the late 70s, when there were riots in Philadelphia, all of my Italian family was all mobbed up, and there were there were guys with shotguns hanging out outside the restaurants, making sure that people weren't going to break in. So I grew up with this whole culture of, I've got an Uncle Sonny and an Uncle Primo, and so I grew up with all of that. And then my dad was friends with Angelo Bruno. He actually had a sit down with him about 3 weeks before they blew his brains out.
Oh my God.
It was an interesting story because my uncle was working at Tandy Leather at the time. He was a supervisor at Tandy, and a guy was working there, and they were trying to fire him. And my uncle was like trying to talk to him, and he threatened my uncle, saying that he was connected in New York and that he was going to have all of his buddies come down here and shoot up the place and everything. And my uncle was terrified. My uncle never wanted any connection with anybody. However, my dad always wanted to be part. Of course, never could be because he's not Italian.
Mhm.
But my dad wanted to be a hitman. So my dad knows a bunch of people, and he goes to Angie and says, "Hey, I need you to look into this guy and find out if he's actually connected in New York. Does my brother have anything to worry about?" And of course, they get back to him a week or two later and said, "No, that guy had no connections. You don't have to worry about him anymore." And so the guy disappears. They never, as far as I know, they never heard from him again. And nobody knows what happened to him.
Huh.
But it's funny because, the old story about, well, one day you're going to have to do me a favor
Yeah.
was pretty much exactly what Angie said to my dad.
Really?
Like, you're going to have to, but 3 weeks later, he was dead. So he never did have to return the favor. He didn't have to pay it back.
Wow.
So, but my dad had been relishing the chance to pay it back all of his life. So it was like he was ready to go. And, I always wondered during that time period, just after that, you have all the stuff with John Gotti and you have Richard Kuklinski and, the hit on Paul Castellano and all of that. And I wonder how far removed I was from that. Kuklinski was only up in Jersey.
Yep.
I was not very far from Jersey. And I wonder, as a kid, how much we cross paths around each other.
Yeah.
It's always been fascinating to me. So, like, when I was in high school, I would go to the Wilmington Public Library. And I remember I used to get this book out. It was called Little Man. I don't remember who it was by, but it was the story of Meyer Lansky.
Yeah.
And I probably read that book 50 times when I was a kid. Just recently, I bought a copy. I saw it in a half price book somewhere, and I bought a copy of it, and I have it up on my shelf now. But just reading that story and finding out how integral part this Jewish guy had in forming the five families and everything, and really was the brains behind all of it.
Yep.
It's just fascinating. Luciano had the charisma and could get the people together. I'm trying to think of the third guy. Anyway, he was the muscle behind it, and ended up getting sent out. Bugsy Siegel, who was also not Italian, which is
Mhm.
really funny.
Mhm.
But you've got Siegel, you've got Luciano, and you've got Meyer Lansky. Lansky being the brains, Siegel being the muscle, and then Luciano, kind of being the in between. It's just always really fascinating to me. I love it. Actually, in volume 2, I will get into Lucky Luciano. I'll talk about John Gotti. I'll talk about Kuklinski. And it's funny. I'll be honest with you about this. This is really funny. I started writing volume 2.
Okay.
The very, very first thing in volume 2 is Billy the Kid. And so I like to start out old and move on. But Billy the Kid, I have never been into the Old West. It is really hard for me to write. I'm like struggling with writing about Billy the Kid. And then I've got Bonnie and Clyde. And I'm like, I'm not looking forward to writing about that story. And then I go immediately into Lucky Luciano. And I'm like, maybe I should just write chapter 3 and go back and write the rest. So it's funny how that happens. Like, for the last couple of weeks, I've been writer's block. Like, oh, I don't want to look at another story about Billy the Kid.
No.
So funny.
Well, that's an interesting transition from Bonnie and Clyde to Billy the Kid to Lucky Luciano. I mean, that's I mean, I understand I understand. I kind of understand the transition, but I get it. But
Well, that volume is all about criminals,
yeah.
and not necessarily like, of course, Bonnie and Clyde. You talk about bank robberies and
Yep.
stuff like that during this era of the 20s, where primarily you have bank robberies and stick-ups, right?
Yep.
And then you have organized crime, which ends up doing all. Then your prostitution
Yep.
numbers and all of these things. And it's interesting to see the evolution of crime.
Yeah.
And I may actually talk a bit about that in the epilogue to that book,
Yeah.
because I think the evolution of crime is interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm ending that book. The last chapter is with Jeffrey Epstein, and so a whole different type of crime. We'll get into Oswald in that book. So we'll talk about a bunch of conspiracy theories and things like that. So there's going to be, I'm thinking that, this book with, 230 some pages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how big the second one's going to be. I'm thinking that as soon as I get into some of that, especially the more current stuff, we may be much further along than that. And then the third volume on cults and religions have already been expanded to 15.
Oh, wow.
And that one may be really, really weighty.
Well, I'll tell you, this first book is fascinating, and it's a quick read. I mean, it really goes by quickly, and it's not just the subject matter, because I think, as a true crime audience, not only are we fascinated by serial killers and the mindset, because let's face it, psychologically, it's a fascinating mindset, but and not just the acts of what they do is fascinating, but it's the information that you provide us with, Jeff, that really it gets us going. I mean, there's little tidbits in here, and the fact that you play this 3 myths and a legend game gets us going. But I thought that was true. Tell me, what was it that why is it that we buy into these myths? What is it about these myths that we want to hold on to?
It's because we want to believe, right? We want to believe in something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to believe in the things sometimes that are a little bit more outlandish about people, because it's just like when you look at ancient mythology, right? You go into the Greeks and the Romans. It's the same thing, right? They do it because they need to explain the world around them. They need to understand why something would have been done, why this happened to them, because without that, they can't make sense of life. So we do the same thing to these serial killers, right? We create this mythology around them because we look at them like they're so alien and so foreign to us that we can't really understand why they would do what they do. And so we develop these myths and we develop these legends about them to make sense of the world around us and to make sense of often the senseless crimes that they commit. And so we have to do that to rationalize it in our own mind. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It also doesn't mean that it's false, right? Because we're dealing with people that are not using rational thought anyway. So you can't rationalize something that isn't rational to begin with. So, like, looking at this, you have to really take it from a different angle and like look at it very, very objectively. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to look at it from their perspective. And I think that I get to be in a unique position to do that, because I think a lot like many of those people. I already mentioned that, my dad wanted to be a mafia hitman.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up like that, I was not far behind him. I emulated my dad in everything that I did. I got into a lot of trouble when I was a kid. And it took me years and years to learn how to break away from that and not be the sociopathic person that was easy for me to fall into. So, like, learning how to deal with people, learning how to connect with people, gives me a unique perspective on the mind of a killer, where most people are very academic. They read a lot of books, they've done a lot of psychology classes. I've done a lot of life, and I've learned a lot of like what it means to be very impulsive. I've struggled with that all of my life. I've struggled with the thoughts and crazy stuff coming into my head and not acting upon that because there would be really, really negative consequences if I did that. So, like, learning how to navigate that in these troubled waters of our own mind allows you a unique doorway into that subject, because the people that are there are dealing with the same thing, right? whether it's they had abuse before, if they whatever kind of abuse they faced, whatever kind of mental issues they dealt with, going through their life, there were events that continue to shape that. And you can watch people. I think it's fascinating to watch people. You have these people that have a black cloud over their head all the time, right?
Yeah.
Always something going wrong. Always they have a problem. Well, life doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
We choose to be that way.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, because of the circumstances, could never pull themselves out of the things that they were in. And in fact, they continue to build this fantasy life that they then have to fulfill because they can't experience life any other way. It's the only time they feel alive, right?
Yep.
So they craft all of this fantasy and then they have to try to fulfill it. The mistake is that you can never fulfill the fantasy. The fantasy never becomes reality because it always seems so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do it, it never matches up. It's the same thing as a guy that goes and sticks a needle in his arm, and you have that heroin high, right? You never meet the first one because you can never have that first experience again. And it is not any different when it comes to the mind of a killer, right? They're chasing that high all the time because it's what they need to feel life, which is why they can't stop. And it's different for each one.
Yeah.
So, the different types of killers have different motivations, but certainly for the sadosexual killers, there is a very, very similar trend depending on what they're getting involved in.
So true, so true, and especially when you read that chapter on John Wayne Gacy. I mean, you see that. I mean, you can actually feel it when you read that chapter that you've written on John Wayne Gacy. Tell you what, let's take our break here, and when we come back, I want to get into some of the myths that are out there, and each one of the serial killers that you've written about, because they're interesting. We'll tackle one from each of them. I think because it's interesting. I want to kind of confound the audience a little bit about what it is they think they believe. This book is so fascinating, Jeff. You've done such a good job with this book that I think I want to shake up the audience a little bit when we come back. The book is Beyond the Headlines, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. And it's available by Wild Blue Press. We have a link in the description of this program. So I want you to go out and get it during the break. When we come back, we'll talk with the author, Jeff Ignatowski, about different myths from each one of the serial killers that are in this book. And I'll actually, I'll talk to Jeff a little bit about one in particular, and that is Jeff Mudgett, who is a friend of the program, who I'm a little concerned about. I'm not going to lie. Jeff is still out there. He's still kind of beating the drum for hhholmes. And I want to talk to him a little bit about where Jeff is right now with that, because it does tie into the Jack the Ripper story, which hhholmes and Jack the Ripper are addressed in this book. And you've managed to do a brilliant job with both of them, Jeff. So I think we're going to tackle that subject today as well. I want to get a little bit into that and the why with Jeff. I want to talk to you a little bit in deeper detail with Jeff on that as well. So when we come back, hhholmes, Jack the Ripper, and we'll talk myths when we come back here on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is Jeff Ignatowski. The book is Beyond the Headlines, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Just the first book out of a book of 3. I know it's a lot of pressure for Jeff. I'm not trying to put the pressure on Jeff, but it's going to be the first of 3 wonderful books. This is an absolutely wonderful book. I had a great time reading this book over the weekend. And I'm telling you, folks, you're going to have a wonderful time reading this book as well. We have a link in the description of this program. And I am hoping that you pick up this book and that you'll see for yourself just the fact that there is the serial killers that we've listed in the beginning of the program in this game of 3 myths and 1 legend. which got me into it right away. The first subject in the book is Elizabeth Bathory, and you think you know the legend, and you think you know everything there is to know. And the one thing that hits me right over the head, the first minute I read this, Jeff, is, well, of course, Elizabeth Bathory is the most prolific female murderer of all time. She did this all herself. She's the mastermind. And then you go, no, 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 no. It wasn't all her.
It is a fascinating story because we have that idea. There's all the movies and the TV shows that talk about Elizabeth Bathory being the blood countess, and that she bathed in the blood of her virgin handmaidens. And then you also have the Guinness Book of World Records, right?
Mhm.
That says that she is the most prolific serial killer ever, right? She's in the Guinness Book of World Records. And I believe it is 600 plus victims that she had. When you really dig into the court documents, right? Because they have court documents of her trial. When you look at the court documents, you don't see that. Right? And you have all of these hundreds of people that are interviewed that, you wonder, why are they being interviewed? Why is this all happening? Why wouldn't they make more claims, right? If they're trying to get off, right, they're not trying to be implicated in this, they would make all kinds of wild claims, but there is no claims of her bathing in blood. Zero.
Yeah.
Nobody ever made that claim. And so it's fascinating when you actually dig into some of that stuff that, of course, you find out that there were several people involved, or several of her inner circle. I believe there were four of them, including Elizabeth Bathory, that were regularly torturing people, and that they would stand there together and do it. And so it's fascinating to know that and her husband is actually the one that started that, right? He showed her all of that stuff. And even before that, I believe it was her aunt that got her involved in this whole kind of sadomasochism and everything that was, pretty, they were royalty, right? At the time where royals got to do whatever the hell they wanted. And so you see that throughout history, right? You go over to France and you look at oh my goodness, why can't I think of his name now? The Marquis de Sade, right? The guy that is famous for, really starting the whole BDSM thing, right? Because of all the parties and things that he had. This is similar time period, before, I think Elizabeth Bathory was before that, but, this is a similar kind of thing that happened with royals, right? Because they were so separated. You have societies that are, super, super wealthy that can do whatever they want, and you have super poor people that don't get anything. And these people that are wealthy get to do all of those things and live out all their earthly desires. Well, when her husband and her got married, he did. He gave his wife everything she wanted. And it seemed like she had a bloodlust. He would create dungeons in each of their castles so she could have a place to play with her victims. And then she would teach that to the people around her. They would teach her things. There are stories about her, leaving people out covered in honey so the bugs would eat them. All kinds of crazy, crazy stories. And, you wonder, how do you get to a place where, as a human, we do that to each other? But there's proof, right? This is the same time period where they're cutting off people's heads and putting them on stakes.
Yeah.
So you see them up the road, right? This is not a time where we're quote unquote civilized, where you don't see that stuff in the street. It was common practice that if you don't want your enemies to come here, you scare them to death so they don't come and try to take over your country. So it's fascinating when you look at it from the context of such a different society, such a different way of life. But the truth is that she probably didn't kill anywhere near that many people. I'm sure that she killed a lot, but probably not nearly as many as the Guinness Book of World Records says. I believe that there is one historian that believes that she may have killed up to about 30 people, not 300 or 600. So it's interesting to know that and to look at that in this story that we really base a lot of our legends on, even up to vampiric legend, right? We always think of Vlad the Impaler, but there is actually some debate on whether the stories come from Elizabeth Bathory or Vlad the Impaler, right? Because there's again similar time period. They were right next door to each other, and where did all these vampire legends come from? Maybe they started with Vlad, and maybe they grew because of Elizabeth.
Mhm.
And this is also a time where we're constantly sharing stories because, you know, we want to scare people. Like uh, the royals didn't want people to come in and overthrow them, right? There are plenty of uprisings. Well, if you scare people and keep them in servitude, they don't rise up against you.
Right.
So it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. Another fascinating case, which bleeds into another one in the book, which we got to dig into a little bit here. I want to go light on one, heavy on another, which I'm going to go in an opposite order, probably other shows here for you, Jeff. That is the Jack the Ripper Holmes case. I want to go heavier on the Holmes case than the Jack the Ripper case. Everybody's familiar with the Jack the Ripper case, so I want to go lighter on that. I want to talk more about the Holmes case. I want to talk more about Jeff Mudgett, and that's this. You know, the the Jack the Ripper case is one of those cases that, of course, is very old. It's one of those where the suspects are laid out. We think every once in a while we get a nugget dropped in our lap. You may see something in the Daily Mail where there's another piece of DNA, which it might be too degraded to guess that they have something or they may not have something. Everybody thinks they know or they may know who the Ripper is, and then they take it off the table. It's one of those
Yeah.
things. I'm not going to spoil it for the book, but you think you have your suspect for the Ripper. You think you have a pretty good idea, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have suspicions. I think there are a couple good candidates. The truth is, none of us will ever know.
Right.
It's way, way too past. We're talking hundred years plus. There's no way that we're ever going to find anything now. All of that evidence is long gone, and it's fun to speculate and even get into some of the conspiracies. Again, it was the royals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was because there was, so and so was a werewolf, and there's all kinds of wild conspiracies out there. But I think that there is some good evidence for a couple of the suspects. I go through them in the book. Um, but I think it's even more interesting to look at it, because we have the canonical five, right? The five Ripper victims. But that is probably and possibly not true, right? There may have been more. There is a good case for there being more victims, several before the first one, and possibly several after that. And I do talk a lot about that in the book,
Yeah.
about those possibilities. Uh, I don't know where I stand on that. I think there needs to be more information. I think that some of the stuff that has come up recently about Elizabeth Stride's scarf, and that they found this DNA on it and it directly links to one of them, which consequently is one that I think is really, really possible.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the truth about that: how many people have touched that scarf in 120 years?
Yes. Yeah.
There's no possible way to get a DNA match from something that old, that was not protected, that nobody ever kept it in a sealed bag. They were passing it around at parties, and the family was showing it to each other. There's no way that we could get an exact match on that. There's no way that it could be credible to
Mm-hmm.
know that information. So, even now, somebody, gets killed tomorrow in LA, right? Or anywhere in the country. Maybe not point at LA, I guess.
Sure.
But, somebody gets killed somewhere and they grab a piece of evidence and they don't bag it up right away. Already, not good DNA evidence, right?
Yeah.
It's not nearly as clear cut as we would like to believe. There are lots and lots of loopholes in that system. Things can get contaminated really, really easily. So it makes it for a very difficult thing. And to have a garment 120 years old to get any reliable evidence from is ridiculous.
Yeah. There's one other I don't know if I call it conspiracy theory. We'll just call it a theory. There's one other theory out there, which you bring up in the book, which is very interesting, and that is that the Ripper was either a woman or B was dressed in women's clothing, which is completely feasible as well. In order
Yeah.
to get around, you want to expound on that a little bit?
No, I think it's a fascinating idea that there is that possibility. How did this guy or how did this person get close to all of these women? And a big thing is we always think of the five as being prostitutes. They were not, and so uh, again, I think that's the first myth that I go through is that the five women were all prostitutes. Jack the Ripper did not kill prostitutes. That was not his MO. So, how did this person get close to these women? Was it that this person was a woman themselves? Or is it that this person looked like a woman so that they could get in and, you know, get these people in a vulnerable position so that they could then do the deeds that they did? And I think it's fascinating. It's a theory that's out there. You know, not widely publicized, but it's an interesting theory. Could
Yeah.
it be true? Who knows? For a long time they were calling Jack the Ripper Leather Apron, right?
Mhm.
Because of the piece of apron that was found at one of the crime scenes. Well, the place that they worked at, the leather making place, mostly women that worked there.
Yeah.
So was it one of the women that worked there that committed these crimes? Who knows? We'll never know, but it's fun to postulate and to think about all the things it could be or would be. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I, I find it a very fascinating theory, and I don't think it's that far of a leap to the right or left from being the truth. I mean, what more of a clever way to get that close to women to murder them than to dress up or be one and get close to them? Like you pointed out, they weren't prostitutes, at least not all of them were, and they were women who simply were down and out and sleeping on the street because they had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, very, very feasible. I want to skip ahead here to Holmes, Herman Mudgett, and I want to talk a little bit about our friend Jeff Mudgett, who, again, as a friend, I love him to death, but he was carrying the torch for his great grandfather to be Jack the Ripper, and really was convinced that he was Jack the Ripper, and he even took it so far as to take it to TV. Although, let's face it, Holmes was no choir boy.
No.
Yeah. Uh, Now, what's interesting is you really did your homework as far as Holmes and what exactly he did and didn't do with the murder castle. Uh, you know, Jeff has his statistics as far as what he believed went on in that murder castle. And if you listen to Jeff, that thing was a regular cauldron of death over there in Chicago. What you find and what he's found are probably two different things. Now, it wasn't exactly a smokestack of death over there in Chicago, but there was some things that went on. One of the myths was that there weren't probably as many bodies being churned out of there as what we think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I, I have never talked to Jeff myself personally.
Mhm.
Well, let me take that back. I have talked to him through Messenger once or twice. mainly about his book,
Okay.
because he has a book out as well.
Yes.
And
Bloodstains.
well, I'm sorry.
Bloodstains is the name.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I was actually looking at getting a copy of that because I wanted to read. Like, I've watched American Ripper a bunch of times. I've seen Jeff on there. And here's a funny story. This is kind of how this started. I was at a show in Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and I was up there, and I had a ton of people that kept coming up to the booth, and they kept saying, "Well, what do you think? Do you think Jack the Ripper was H.H. Holmes?" And I said, absolutely not. It's a ridiculous theory. Now, I know Jeff's standpoint on that. I've watched it a bunch. And it just so happens that the lady that was right behind me was good friends with Jeff. And so she was sitting there listening to me talk to all these people about why I thought it was complete bunk, right? And so she's laughing because I don't think that she necessarily agrees with Jeff, but they're good friends. And from what I understand, he's a great guy,
Yes.
and very, very steadfast in his convictions.
Yep.
And that's great. You should be,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she actually took a picture. I had an H.H. Holmes Lego figure that I made, and she bought it from me and was like taking pictures and sending it to Jeff. And so I told her, I said, you know what? Tell Jeff I'll send him one. But if I send him one, I'm going to put Jack the Ripper on the back and just to mess with him. So I thought it was really funny. I don't know that he would think it was all that funny, but I thought it was funny. But we did talk about, and it was funny. Last time I messaged him about the book.
You were cutting out a little bit there when you were hitting the punchline. That's why we couldn't
No.
hear you. You were a little muffled.
So I was going to send him the Lego figure with Jack the Ripper on the back of it, with a no smoking sign through it, like the circle with the cross.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
No Jack the Ripper. So yeah. I was talking to him about picking up his book, and I thought it was funny because I know he knows who I am. And so he wrote it. He said he was going to write a nice little blurb for me in the book, and I can only imagine what that would say. There are a couple of things that I think, and I mentioned them in the book, that really give me question to this whole idea of H.H. Holmes being Jack the Ripper. And actually, before I mention that, let me say this. I had a guy come to me just recently. He was looking at ordering a copy of the book, and he brought up H.H. Holmes to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me if I had read all the court or not the court documents, but the journals and stuff that he had written in prison. And my response to that is, yes, first of all. But when I read it, it seems interesting. But this is coming from a guy who now had time to write his story, right? He had already been in prison for some time, and now he's writing down his memoirs. This is not a guy that is known to be a truth teller, right? He is a known liar. So, and a guy that's now trying to embellish his story. So, do I believe what he wrote? Probably not. Would I rather look at the facts and what was actually there? Yeah, I think I'd like to look at that first. You know, Jeff presupposes a lot of things about Holmes going there, talks about documents and things that he has. From what I understand, and I've talked to several of the ripperologists that I know that say that Holmes never had anything during the time going over to Europe. Now, does that mean that Holmes did not train someone to go and do that? That's entirely plausible. But do I think Holmes did it himself? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, I think the strongest thing to me is the fact that the Ripper and Holmes had completely different methods for killing. Mm-hmm. And we know, looking at hundreds of killers, that never changes, or rarely does it change. Holmes was motivated by money. He killed because he wanted profit. Right. He did not kill I mean, he killed Benjamin Peitzel because Peitzel was going to rat him out and not give him money. He
Yeah.
wanted the money. He was trying to get the insurance policies, right? So like he didn't kill for pleasure. Jack the Ripper, on the other hand, was a frenzy killer. He killed obviously out of hate, obviously out of lust for whatever, whether it was uh, whatever was happening. He was a violent killer. We see that especially with the Mary Kelly murder, where he basically ripped the body apart. So not doesn't even fit with Holmes at all.
Right.
And I will tell you this, that Holmes has always been my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been fascinated with H.H. Holmes. The story is incredible. I love the whole turn of the century thing. So I understand why it's fascinating for Jeff. So, it's just always incredible to me, that whole story, that whole time period. And, I love some of the things that he puts out there because I find them very, very interesting. Apparently, there have been a couple of conventions that have been talking about trying to get the two of us together and to debate one another on H.H. Holmes being Jack the Ripper. So there's been some talk, and I think it's kind of funny. Uh, everybody's entitled to their opinion. That was the whole point of the book. Dig in, see what you believe, check out his stuff. Like, read it, listen to him,
Absolutely. Yeah.
discover it for yourself, and see which side of the fence you fall on. It's clear where I fall, and it's probably the one place in the book where I am definitely upfront about what I don't think is the truth. So, and on top of that, of course, here's another thing I think is really funny that Jeff talks about H.H. Holmes not being buried in the crypt, right? That it wasn't Holmes in the crypt.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I wasn't there. He talks about the size of the skeleton and things like that. That it was much, much taller than Holmes. Uh, the thing that I question about that is he questions the guys that did the DNA testing, right? Because the DNA testing confirmed that it was of his family's lineage, right?
Yep.
So it would be Holmes, but he says that they botched the DNA record, right? And so here's the problem that I have with that.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn in DNA samples to a lab, it's not a name. Like, they turn in numbers,
Right.
right?
Right.
They don't know. It's a blind test.
Yeah.
And honestly, after 100+ years, what do these people care about whether it's H.H. Holmes? They don't know. Most of them probably had no idea. These are lab people. They had no motivation. Nobody was paying them to say that it was H.H. Holmes and try to quiet this whole thing. They don't care. So like this whole argument that they went out there and tried to quiet it and just stop it seems kind of silly to me.
Right.
Maybe he's got other information that I don't know about, but to go down that whole route to these guys that are in a laboratory, I don't think anybody really gives a shit enough to want to doctor DNA evidence from 150 years ago. But it's interesting, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. And you are right that, guys in a lab, they just run tests and they're very expensive tests, and to purposely botch a very expensive test, I don't think they would. It's just, there's just too much going on in their day, and they have a lot of tests to run in one day. So, there's a lot that they have to keep straight in one day. So I find it kind of hard to believe that they botched a DNA test. That's for sure. I want to hit two more before I let you go here. Actually, I want to add a note here. I wanted to get to Dahmer today, but I don't think we're going to. One of my co-hosts, actually, his dad was one of the corrections officers for Dahmer. So I wanted to,
Oh, wow.
I wanted to let you know that. But I wanted to get to Dahmer today, but in the interest of time, I think we'll leave Dahmer alone. I do want to talk about Ed Gein and John Wayne Gacy today.
Okay.
And let's talk about Ed Gein first. I've driven through Plainfield. I got to tell you, even driving through Plainfield, it's eerie. It's just an
Interesting.
eerie feeling.
I
Knowing.
have
Oh, go ahead.
I've not been there yet, but by the end of the year, I will actually have to go to Minneapolis for a show, and I'm going to drive right by Plainfield. So I'm going to go there by the end of the year.
What show? Because I'm in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. I'll be at World Oddities Expo.
Okay.
There in I want to say it's the last week of November. Yeah, November, I think.
Okay.
Or yeah, something like that. I'll let you know for sure
Yeah,
the date.
please do. Please
Yeah,
do.
I'll be there.
Yeah, great, great. So yeah, so if you've got to come through Plainfield, uh, take a moment and the day I drove through, because when you go through a you actually pass a Swiss colony. I know this is talk about buying into a myth here, Jeff. You pass a Swiss colony outlet store. So immediately you start thinking sausage. Did Ed Gein make people sausage? That myth, right? Which I was kidding with my girlfriend. Do you want to stop by and get some Gein people sausage from Swiss Colony? You got to do that at times because you're in Wisconsin, you're near Plainfield. You gotta joke about that sort of stuff, which she did want to stop by the Swiss Colony store. But to me, and if you ever go to Zach Bagans' museum,
Yeah,
he's
I've
got,
been there.
okay, and he's got the cauldron. So tell me, when you were standing in front of the cauldron, did you get that vibe? Did you feel an actual vibe standing in front of it?
It's interesting because that is the only place in the whole museum where I actually saw something.
Really?
And it wasn't at the cauldron. When I was standing in there, we walked in and I turned and I looked up because they have the whole barn, like they have the
Yes.
barn laid out there.
Yeah.
And I looked up in the rafters and I saw a shadow move from one side to the other. And I stopped and I was like, is there somebody up there? And so I asked the lady, I said, hey, does anybody ever see shadows in here? And she said, yeah, that's a kind of a common thing in that room.
Yep.
And I saw it immediately when I walked in there. It was the only place in the museum where I had a personal experience, which is interesting to me. I don't know that I go around to a lot of the true crime places,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually collect dirt, and I sell them at conventions. Right, I make shadow boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and I very rarely feel anything eerie about any of those things.
Okay.
I think a lot of that is the energy that we put into it.
Okay.
Because I always get people that come up to my booth and they're like, "Oh my God, I could never have that. Got 30 jars of it at home right now, and no big deal."
Right.
So you must be haunted. And I do paranormal investigating. I think it's fascinating. I believe that there are other things out there, but I also know that a lot of that stuff, like we talk about poltergeist activity, and a lot of people believe that that is energy that is manifesting because of us and our own personal things. So I think that it's fascinating from that end of it. Like, what do we give to that to give it any kind of sentience? I guess.
Yeah. 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 I just that's the reason I asked, did you feel anything when you were in front of the cauldron? Because people have seen shadows up in those rafters. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if you had seen anything there at that, or if it had ever been in front of that cauldron. So the myths alone about Ed Gein are many. I mean, there's just
Oh yeah.
so many out there. I mean,
Yeah.
the reality alone is horrifying. What the cops find when they go in eventually into the farmhouse is disturbing.
Yeah. For sure.
But then you get the stories around it before they eventually raise the farmhouse. And that alone is you know can you give me what you find is the most disturbing myth compared to reality?
I think the most disturbing thing is that, people always say that Ed Gein is a cannibal. And a lot of that comes from, the movies that were like inspired by Ed Gein. From what we understand, Ed Gein never ate anybody. He never, and he would vehemently say that until the day he died, that he never ate any of them. It was a very, very specific paraphilia that Ed Gein had. He was really trying to embody his mother, who was crazy to begin with, but was the only person that really cared about him. So, it's a fascinating story that has really captured culture, and it has become a cultural icon, really. And it's fascinating how Ed Gein has transformed all of our horror, all of our our pop culture has really been touched by that one story in Plainfield that changed the idea of what we think of as scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought that that is fascinating, and that I talk a lot about in the book.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And then as we wrap up today, I want to talk about John Wayne Gacy. And I realize that John Wayne Gacy is a subject that gets covered a lot, but you uncover some things and you actually come up with a theory that I've never heard before, believe it or not. And that is that, if I may, that John Wayne Gacy actually would rediscover his humanity by going into the Pogo the Clown,
Yeah,
the Pogo the Clown character. And you dig into his psychology a little bit by saying this. And it's the myth that he never, that he killed as Pogo the Clown. And you point out he never killed anybody as Pogo the Clown. And in that myth, in bringing out that myth and saying, no, 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 he actually went into the Pogo the Clown character to find his humanity. To me, that speaks volumes, because, and again, I'll bring up Zach Bagans' museum. Zach, I believe, has, I think he has one of his Pogo paintings. If you notice with his Pogo paintings, there's almost a gentleness to it, to the Pogo
yeah,
paintings, although they are a little disturbing. I think people find them a little disturbing because they're a bit amateurish.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what it is.
So I think with Gacy, it's interesting because, of course, we always have this idea that Gacy killed children.
Mhm.
Largely, Gacy did not. Most of his victims, one of his victims was 14. The rest of them were 16 to like 24 years old, right? He really killed young men, is what he killed. And, Gacy, we always have this idea, well, when he got into the clown costume, he was going to make children happy. That's what he liked to do. That's why he was a clown. And so one of the reasons why I included that in the book is because of the Dahmer series, right? And I was writing that right as Dahmer was finishing up. And the last episode, they showed Gacy drowning someone in the Pogo the Clown outfit. And it's not accurate, right? And I know several people that are directly involved in that case. I'm friends with Bob Motta Jr. His dad was Gacy's defense attorney through the large majority of the trial, and then several other people that knew Gacy personally. William Dorsch, who has written a book about it, and I think it's important to realize that even killers have to have an escape, right? They
Right.
have to have something where they can normalize within society. And I believe that that is one of the ways that Gacy did that. He used the Pogo the Clown design to really normalize himself. And to be perfectly honest, I understand what that's like. I personally don't wear masks because I understand the disassociation that happens in completely the opposite direction for me,
Okay.
right? I don't wear masks because I know that I disassociate when it happens. Gacy would wear masks so he could get into a place, or not mask, but put on the clown paint so he could get into a place where he could entertain and where he could be there and have fun with the kids. And I think that that's an important distinction.
When we had Karen Conti on, the only time I ever heard her say that she got anything that seemed scary as far as pogo went, he made her a custom pogo painting. And she said it was a bit darker. It was like a darker pogo painting. And I tried to think of the psychology of why he would give her a darker pogo painting. And the only thing I can think of is he actually opened up to her more.
Yeah.
And I think it was his way of trying to reach out to her, and it was almost like he was trying to show her his complete self, right?
Yeah.
Like he was trying to mix his both sides of his personality and say, here I am, this is me, right? I can't tell you who I am. Like you and I have shared a lot. Like he would joke around with her and show her his lighter side, and he wanted to confess to her that there were other bodies. And you bring this up in the book, that you believe there's more than just what was in the crawl space, and there was more than
Yeah.
more out there. Because I had asked her that on the program when I had Karen on, and she said, oh yeah, absolutely, I believe there's more out there than what he stated to me. And many times she tried to ask him, and she tried to coax it out of him, John, are there more out there than what you're saying? And there were a few times where he almost cracked. But he never admitted. He never admitted that there were more out there. But I think that painting, that darker pogo painting, was his way of saying, this is me. These are both sides of me. This is who I truly am.
Oh, for sure. And I think that that's one thing about Gacy specifically. He knew exactly who he was.
Yeah.
He is not one of these people that had a dual personality. He knew exactly who he was. He knew exactly when he could turn it on and when he had to shut it off. It's why he is so scary. It's why he is, for many people, one of the scariest killers ever. This guy could go into any situation, he could do anything with anyone, and he knew when he could be the monster and when he had to back off. When you find somebody like that, that is scary. Someone that can cover it so well. Yeah.
I just find that, if I was Karen Conti and I was the one person who got through, I would be scared as hell.
Wasn't his victim type.
True.
He would never be interested in anything with Karen. And a lot of his killing was to meet his own sexual needs. And so Karen would never be a part of that. He would never look at her in that way. So she never had anything to fear with Gacy.
Huh. Well, that's a good point. That's a very good point. I just, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I just, but the fact that he revealed himself and she got that deep, I mean, to see that much ugliness is just frightening,
For sure.
Just frightening. I guess that's the one thing I have to add there. Jeff, this book is fascinating. I can't wait for the next 2 volumes, my friend. Beyond the Headlines, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends is available right now by Wild Blue Press. We have a link in the description of this program. I highly encourage you to go get it. Again, 3 myths and a legend. It's a great game to play. You'll keep yourself. Hey, this book goes by so quickly. That's the thing. You get into it, you start reading it. You don't want to put it down. I didn't put it down. I got through it in one shot. So again, folks, go get it. And by the way, where do we get Killers the card game?
Oh, you can go to my website. It's scorpionlairgames.com, and it is available there.
Okay, so go get yourself Killers the card game as well, and go get the book. Let me know what you think of it. tim@darknessradio.com, because again, I really did enjoy reading the book, and Jeff, I can't wait for the next one because I want to read all about the mob. So
absolutely.
All right. So, folks, we're going to lighten things up a little bit. It's time now for us to bring in Jessica Freeburg, and it's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time you've all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. With that, we bring in a co-hostess. She's intelligent. She's beautiful. She's witty. She'll never be on this program for Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. I know that. I mean, I think she's an upstanding citizen. I haven't run a background check. Probably should have done that to begin with. Here she is, Jessica Freeburg. Hi, Jessica.
Hello, Tim. I'm innocent. You'll find nothing in my background.
Okay, well, I'll take that under advisement. How are you today?
I'm so good. It's a rainy day, so it's a little dreary around here, but
I know, right? The chipmunks have already built an ark in the garage.
I believe it.
I saw them breaking out the hammer and nails and a little bit of wood, little tiny pieces of wood, and they were in the
You
garage.
have little animals coming 2 by 2 to your garage.
Yes, yeah. Little chipmunks and little birds, and yeah, and they're all like, save me, save me. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's not that bad. Come on.
Oh, it just never stops, though.
I know, right? It's falling out there quite heavily.
But that's okay.
Yeah, it's only 14, 15 inches of rain in 4 hours. It's not that bad, right? Boy, oh boy, do we have a program today. Folks, I gotta tell you, the rain's coming down heavily down there and out there, and the stories are lined up like you wouldn't believe. Today and tomorrow, Jess, we're going to tackle a subject that's hot in the paranormal world, but it's also hot in the legal world. Like I think the state of Rhode Island might need to get their legal departments in, probably the tax department and probably the employment department, and on a popular paranormal hotspot. Yeah, because evidently you can't let the ghosts tell you who may be stealing from you and who may not be.
Solid advice. You can't just take the ghost's word for it.
That's right. And it's now infiltrated Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals, because you're not going to believe what the first story is today.
I'm excited.
Oh, God, it's horrible. It's a horrible story. It was brought to everybody's attention, believe it or not, by Ghost Hunters Jason Hawes. If watch the video online, it might have seemed a little too ridiculous to believe, but it's real life. And I almost feel bad for Jason, but Jason kind of put himself in the middle of things. Jason's like a brother to me. I've known him since 2006. And but he's doing the right thing. He really is. He's put himself on the side of the wronged, and the people who worked at the Conjuring House who were fired unjustly. And he's basically putting the new owner of the Conjuring House on blast and saying, hey, lady, you can't just let people go, and especially this one employee who was fired citing accusations from the beyond. In other words, this owner of the Conjuring House says that she fired this one particular man for stealing because a ghost from that died 100 and some years ago said he stole. Not that.
What?
Yes, and she has a security system that she could look at, a camera, Jess, just like you and I are on right now.
Yeah.
She could look at to prove that he stole, but no. We don't look at the camera system, Jess. We take the word of a long dead ghost that supposedly spoke in her ear and told her Brian stole from me.
It's a little ghostly whisper, huh?
Yeah. Are you buying it?
No,
No, I'm not buying it either.
just not.
There's some real problems right now over at the Conjuring House. Not only
Yeah,
that, but
I've seen some grumblings. Yeah.
yeah, not only that, but I highly encourage you. We're not going to, we'll get into it more tomorrow on Supernatural News, but I'd just say if you really want the poop and the scoop, go over to Jason Hawes's YouTube page and watch the video. There's a 2-hour video where Jason breaks everything down. It's a mess. He's even
Wow.
he's been threatened by the owner of the Conjuring House.
What? They can't do that. He's like an
Oh,
icon.
oh, she has. And she herself is a lawyer, which I would think she'd know better.
Huh.
But here's the story. Brian Danzero says he was fired, and Jason has aired the video of Brian telling his story, which is alarming. I'll tell you the story here. Brian Danzero says he was fired from the house, the Conjuring House, featured in that film, The Conjuring, after his boss said she was told by its 19th century owner that Danzero had been stealing money. The Burrillville, Rhode Island farmhouse, also known as the Old Arnold Estate, has been an international draw for paranormal enthusiasts ever since it was made famous by the 2013 supernatural horror movie, The Conjuring. Danzero said he worked at the home, which is open to visitors until current owner Jacqueline Nunez fired him abruptly last month. Danzero said she told him the spirit of John Arnold, who owned the home with his wife Abigail in the 1800s. 1800s, Jess.
Wow. He's been gone a little while.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Said Danzero stole about $3,000. So evidently John Arnold knows the exact amount. Danzero, of course, denies the theft. Even Danzero says, check the tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a little thing called video. She said, John Arnold told me you've been stealing money out of the cash box for the past 2 months, Danzero said in an interview, showing text messages of the conversation. Yes, Brian has the text messages and shows them on the video.
Oh, wow. She's
Yeah.
in trouble.
Oh, yeah. I literally stopped and I had to correct her, like John Arnold, one of the original owners. Nunez, a self-described medium and channeler, confirmed she fired Danzero and that spirits of the most famous haunted and active locations in the world told her he'd been stealing. Nunez also said she'd been informed of other matters that are untoward from previous staff and even mischievous guests. So John Arnold's a big tattletale.
I guess. He's kind of bored on the other side. Wants to stir it up.
Yeah, John Arnold, you know what they say, loose lips sink ships. Just saying, buddy.
Certainly not making any friends, that's for sure.
No. It does not matter whether you believe in the paranormal or not, Nunez said in a statement. I and every person is entitled to experiences that bring understanding and meaning to our lives, including being informed or warned about wicked actors and actions. As far as Brian goes, my experience with him devolved quickly, culminating in his at-will employment termination. The circumstances get fishy as it unveils here, Jess. The Conjuring film was created after Andrea Perron wrote The House of Darkness, House of Light, The True Story, Volume 1. The book is about paranormal activity she experienced living in the Arnold estate, which her family owned in the 1970s. Perron said the family was haunted by Bathsheba, which is a spirit that was unleashed during a seance gone horribly wrong. Perron said paranormal activity happened all the time. It started the first day we moved into the house, Perron said during a 2013 interview. We saw a man standing in the dining room who seemed fixated on dear old Mr. Kenyon, who sold the property to my parents. I walked past him and said, good morning, and he didn't respond. Danzero, who worked as a paramedic before he got hired at the house, recalled his own paranormal experiences, such as hearing voices, footsteps, and even his own voice talking back to him in the basement. One of the weirdest things was being in the basement by myself in the storeroom and literally hearing me call me from the other side of the basement. It's kind of a bizarre experience. Right?
That's creepy.
Yeah. In another experience, Danzaro said a closed door opened up for him as he walked toward it with an armful of boxes. Danzaro said the experience still makes him smile and that he was sure to say thank you. But Danzaro said he has serious doubts rather about John Arnold ever telling Nunez that he was a thief. For a spirit to go after a staff member in that manner, I've never heard of such a thing at any haunted venue, let alone the Conjuring House, he said. Danzaro this week filed a complaint seeking unpaid wages, here we go, with the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training, which he should. He estimates that Nunez owes him about $9,000 for uncompensated work.
Dang.
I think that's why he probably got fired.
That's a problem.
She didn't want to pay him. The state agency confirmed it received the complaint. Nunez said her books back up the allegations of theft, showing discrepancies between merchandise orders and cash sales. Nunez also denied owing Danzaro any money, saying he's been made whole when counting the stolen money as part of his compensation. Now, there's such a thing as cooking the books.
Yeah.
She can supposedly find transgressions wherever she wants.
Well, and even if there are transgressions, she doesn't get to just decide who's responsible for them with no evidence other than a ghost told me.
Right.
And then not pay him.
Who's to say it's him? Again, where's the video?
Right. Show us some evidence.
That's right. Nunez said she's now planning to file a complaint with state officials in Burrillville because Danzaro committed further egregious acts by appearing in YouTube videos, slandering me personally, and trying to damage my reputation and business at the Conjuring House. No, he didn't. He simply reported the facts.
Right.
And he showed text messages saying that you cited a ghost for his firing. That's all he did.
Yeah. And not only firing, but not like withholding his actual payment. That's the biggest problem to me.
Right.
Like, you're an at-will employer. You can fire people if you want, but you still have to pay him.
Yes. Yeah. You still have to pay him his wages. And the fact that you didn't pay him his wages while he was working.
Yeah. $9,000. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah. You're in arrears, lady. You had to pay him. So you're at fault. I mean, you owe him his back wages. This is all I will say in the matter, she added. Danzaro described the entire experience as horrible, saying the stress of it all is causing him anxiety and keeping him up at night. This was going to be my sunset job, he added. In all my career, I've never been accused of stealing. This is why Jay took up his cause. Because he literally didn't want to quit his job to come to work at the Conjuring House. He wanted to keep being an EMT. He wanted to keep helping people. He decided to go help out at the Conjuring House. She turned over the entire staff at the Conjuring House. She let everybody go. She fired them. Really without any provocation. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, that's wild. I wonder, does she owe anyone else money, or is it just him that she didn't pay?
I can't speak to that. I don't know. I don't know what the circumstances there. Again, Jay has all the particulars on his video channel because he did an entire video with all the former employees and they all dish dirt. He has all that on his YouTube channel. You can go check that out. But we'll cover it more on tomorrow's show. So
fascinating.
It's interesting stuff. Our next story has to do with a Batmobile driver who was cited and vehicle seized by police in the street for a racing crackdown. Here's
wonderful.
Yes, somebody juiced up their vehicle to look like the Batmobile.
There you go. That's all right. I like that.
And we're talking the classic 1960s Batmobile.
Yeah. Does it have like, I don't have my glasses on. I have to, hold on. Let me
Okay.
look like an old librarian.
You
It
see
has
that?
like red on the door.
Yep.
Does that say Batmobile on it?
No. You see
Yeah.
the 1960s
Oh, I see it.
red
It's the bat.
Batmobile there?
Yes, it's the bat.
Yep. And in the red trim on everything, it's the black car with the red trim on everything is supposed to make it look like the 1960s Batmobile.
Certainly does. That's
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah. So it's a racing car that's tricked out to look like the Batmobile. So and it looks very much like it. Except for everybody kind of got caught. Whoopsie. Police cited the driver of a Chevy Camaro dressed up like the Batmobile, the 1960s Batmobile, and seized at least 10 other vehicles last Saturday and early Sunday to prevent street racing events in Portland. I believe this is Portland. Is this Portland, Oregon or Portland, Maine? I think it's Portland, Oregon. To prevent street racing events in Portland promoted on social media. Now, police did not identify the driver of the Camaro, but said it was not Batman. So they know it's not Batman. I mean, that's good, right?
That is good, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure.
Batman's not in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, he's been known to flirt with the law. He's a vigilante after all. I mean,
Right.
He's not fully on the side of good. As expected, hundreds of people attempted to establish large-scale street takeovers, but were quickly broken up by law enforcement officers working together on a highly successful multi-agency street racing suppression mission. Say that 10 times fast.
I can't even say it once, Tim.
Police said that in an August 4th announcement. Police said that at least 47 traffic stops were made, at least 11 people were arrested, and at least 10 cars were towed. Some were seized through asset forfeiture, meaning the owners lost their vehicles permanently due to participation in street racing or street takeovers.
Wow. I didn't even know they could do that.
Yeah, I guess they can. Can you imagine that? Putting all that money into a car?
And they just take it from you.
And they're like, mine.
Oh, no.
Man. Throughout the evening, participants tried to establish takeovers of at least 6 intersections. The police response led to all of the takeovers ending quickly. I guess it's a problem out in Portland, huh? There's a summary of all the different takeovers, but we won't go through it all. But needless to say, the Batmobile was one of them. Go figure.
I'd take that too if I was a police officer.
I would, yeah. If it's a Chevy Camaro dressed up as a Batmobile, I'm going to have some
Pretty
fun with
cool.
that vehicle.
Yeah.
That's mine now. Can you imagine the person that decides to go to the auction to get that deal?
Oh, I think we should go. That should be our road trip car. We're always talking about all these great road trips we're going to take to haunted places. That's what we're driving.
A souped up Chevy Camaro dressed up as a Batmobile. I'm telling you.
I can be Batgirl. You can be Batman.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Spandex everywhere.
That's hey, now you're talking a good time there, lady. I'm telling you. Our next story is going from the sheriff confiscating the Batmobile to the sheriff getting knocked out. Just saying.
Like KO'd?
Yeah, like
1-2 punch?
1-2 punch.
Wow.
A man is charged with assaulting the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff, and of all places, the county fair. Have you ever played the Punch-Out game?
I have not.
No?
I don't know what it is. What is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the Punch-Out game where people run up on somebody and punch them out, but I'm not talking about that Punch-Out game. But I'm talking about the the one at the county fair where they've got like the big what do you call it? Like the it's the big punching bag.
Big bag.
Yeah. You punch it to see how hard your punch is.
No, I don't really have very strong arms, so.
You say that as you put the gun out there and look at that. You've got guns.
From carrying groceries in.
Jeez. You're like, I don't have very big arms. And then
I don't. They're kind of puny.
I don't have very big guns. Look at you. I don't have very big guns. Look at that.
I'll try it next time. I'll try the punch out game. One with the bag. I don't want to hit people.
You trying to intimidate me over here, Freeburg? What are you doing?
Yeah, you should be scared.
I'm shaking in my one boot over here. My Sharko boot. Look at the one leg. It's just going back and forth.
Oh no.
We go to Helena, Montana, where a Lewis and Clark County Justice of the Peace, it's so big, it was the Justice of the Peace that set bond at $25,000 for a man accused of assaulting Sheriff Leo Dutton at the Last Chance Stampede and Fair.
Oh, I love everything about that sentence. Leo Dutton. That just sounds like a sheriff.
Well, it sounds like a sheriff that got knocked the F out. Yeah. According to court records, 28-year-old Skylar Ittner, who doesn't sound very tough, is accused of being disorderly at the fair just before 10 p.m. on Saturday. Ittner is accused of arguing with one of the fair vendors and refusing to leave after being asked multiple times. Sheriff Dutton ultimately approached Ittner and asked him to leave. When he refused, court records say the sheriff used his body to push Ittner away from the booth. Now, I have a question here. Use your body to push the guy away. So he didn't use his hands. This is very basketballish, right? So you can't use the hands to push anybody away. What did he?
That's a foul.
Yeah, right. It's a foul. Thank you, Jess. It's a foul. So he used his belly? He used his butt? What did he use?
Is like a chest bump.
Yeah, chest bump. What do you do in order to get the guy away? I mean, if it wasn't an elbow, what did he use?
I would just turn and I would use my butt. I would be like booty bumping him till he moved,
you know. Hip check. What do you do in order to get the guy away? I need to know the body move. Because that's not very tough of a sheriff to use a body.
But your hands are out of bounds. You can't use those.
Hands are free. Hands are out of bounds. Got to put the hands up, right? Okay. So that is when Ittner, who evidently took a hard foul on that one, there was a ref around evidently, allegedly stepped into the sheriff and the altercation began with both men going to the ground. Oh, this is bad. Taking a sheriff to the ground, alcohol had to be involved, right?
Maybe just a little.
Yeah. Prosecutors say other deputies stepped in to detain Ittner, but while the sheriff was on the ground, Ittner was able to punch Sheriff Dutton, causing noticeable swelling. Oh, you're in trouble at that point. You are in trouble. If convicted, Ittner faces a minimum of 2 years in prison and fines up to $50,000.
Dang.
That's what happens in small towns when you start messing with the sheriff.
Yeah, they don't take kindly to that.
You punch a big city cop, $5,000 fine. You're out of jail the next day.
Yeah.
You punch a small town cop, 2 years in prison, $50,000 fine. They don't.
Fair. I'm sorry. I think that's how it should be everywhere.
They don't like you punching Sheriff Roscoe P. Coulter.
No.
Nope.
Can't do that. He's just trying to do his job.
Not going to happen. We go from one asshole punching a cop to one LA burglar who's the nicest guy in the world.
Oh.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to go from one extreme to the other, Jess. This LA burglar left an apology note at the scene of the crime.
That is sweet.
Isn't it? He says, sorry, but drugs are expensive. Isn't that nice?
True. Matter of fact.
It is. Yeah. There's a new thievery etiquette in LA. Polite burglars who steal and show regret. That's so nice. I mean, if you're going to rob me, thank you. I mean, thank you for showing regret. I appreciate it. There were 10 businesses burgled and vandalized in the city of San Fernando over the last few nights, and cops think that there could be just one perp behind them all. The thief is targeting businesses, and in at least one case, he left an apology note and a promise he'll never return. I don't know what this, it looks like it says here you need pennies, but it's,
what?
You need peenies, but it's pennies, I think. It looks like it could be penises, but it's, you need peenies, and it says, sorry, need money for drugs, won't come back. See, here's the note right here, Jess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You need
Well,
PD.
on a sticky note, even. That's awfully
Yeah.
sweet.
On a nice little post-it note there for me. See. The thief wrote, "Sorry, need money for drugs, won't come back." No, well, okay. Politeness aside, the thief was not so nice. One business owner told Fox 11 in LA the burglar left broken glass behind and everywhere. He also trashed the cash register. He took the bills but left the coins, which were strewn everywhere. He vandalized.
Making a mess.
Yeah. That same night, he hit other businesses and security cams caught him writing the note. By the way, there's been a slew of burglaries in LA and celebs, including Bad Baby and Sarah Hyland. Okay, maybe I went a little heavy on the celebs. Have not been spared.
I was just thinking I don't know who they are because I'm old.
Oh, okay. Well, I know who Bad Baby is. I don't know if I know Sarah Hyland so much, but yeah.
She's probably super famous, but I'm still stuck in the 90s, so I don't know.
Calling Bad Baby a celebrity is being kind.
Who is Bad Baby? What does he do?
She.
Oh,
Don't you remember Bad Baby from like Maury?
What?
She claims to be a rapper of sorts.
Oh,
She was
no.
she was a spoiled kid who treated her mother really bad on Maury one time and made a rap career out of it.
Stop it. Are you serious right now?
Serious. That's how she's.
Wow. That's her origin story.
That's her origin story. Like a
Maybe.
Yeah, that's how it started. Yep.
Huh.
Yeah. Kind of fun, huh?
Okay. Bad Baby.
Bad Baby. That's how she got the name, Bad Baby. Yeah. And it's bad. I think it's BHAD, baby, BHABIE.
Oh, stop it. I can't stand it.
Yeah, I know, right? Doesn't that
She
offend
spells
you?
worse. That's worse than the spelling of pennies.
Right. Peenies, right. Doesn't that offend every bit of your author senses to spell it like
Yes.
Yeah.
That's painful. I wouldn't even be able to read that correctly. If I was reading this story,
Yeah.
I would butcher that name.
Well, that's only because I know who Bad Baby is. Yeah. Well, let's move on, Jess. At least I know how to say Tempe as well and not temp. But a Tempe police officer who was recently, this is the ultimate in irony as far as story goes. Are you ready for this? This is the ultimate ironic story. A Tempe police officer recently honored by MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Guess what, Jess?
No.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, come on.
I think so. Popped for DUI.
Dang it.
Yep. Yep. Doesn't practice what he preaches. We go to Tempe, Arizona. A Tempe police officer was recently recognized for his efforts to curb drunk driving. Let's just say he couldn't help but try it himself. Well, sometimes you have to, as an experiment, Jess, so that you can go back on that circuit and you can lecture to the kids. You got to try it once yourself.
You think?
Oh, yeah. You can't stand up there in front of the kids and lecture and say, you can't drink and drive. You can't do the drugs and be successful unless you smoke it up and. Yeah, you got to be part of the story.
I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I totally agree with this
Well,
logic, but
how can you tell them I've failed and I've fallen and now I'm a success unless you failed and fallen?
well, yeah. I mean, if that's your storyline, you better stick to it and actually
That's right.
really mess up your life.
That's right. So this Tempe police officer, he's got to squeal and then drive. Right.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's
not his fault.
That's right. It's not his fault. It's the fact that you people put him there. How does that? Is it pretty good?
Pretty sure it's his fault.
Yeah. Okay. It's his fault. Tempe police say that in the early morning hours of Wednesday, July 31st, the department was notified of a DUI investigation involving an off-duty officer named Zachary Hyde. The TPD was contacted by the Arizona Department of Public Safety. who said, hey, that guy you got out lecturing? I think he was a bit drunk. Anytime a criminal investigation is brought to our attention about one of our officers, we take the matter very seriously, the department said as it raised a glass of wine and no, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I know.
I almost had tea come out my nose.
I'm sorry. DPS confirms that a trooper arrested Hyde during a DUI investigation, but did not elaborate on the case. Tempe police says Officer Hyde was immediately placed on administrative leave pending an internal affairs investigation. DPS is handling the Dewey investigation. Just over a month ago, Officer Hyde was among 2 Tempe officers who received the Hero Award at the 35th Annual Mothers Against Drunk Drivers Law Enforcement Recognition Banquet. I wonder if there's an open bar. I'm just wondering. Oh, come on. It's a joke, Jess.
Oh, no.
There's always an open bar at the Mad Banquet.
Too soon.
It's just nobody ever drinks. Your hard work. Everybody's going to write me now and be like, that's the worst thing in the world.
Mhm.
That is you
Yeah.
unfeeling, uncaring bastard. That's what they're going to say.
They better not.
They
Might.
Your hard work and diligence to ensuring safety on, and that officer was at the bar. He's the first one there. I'm just saying.
He's bellied up.
He's bellied up. He's like, hey, who's going to give me a ride home? Nobody? I'll drive. No. Jess, come on. That's horrible.
Oh, bad choices.
I know. Your hard work and diligence to ensuring safety on our streets was recognized tonight among officers from the whole state of Arizona. Tempe police wrote in a social media post on June 29th, which they took down on June 30th. Just because he was caught. And that's how we end that story. Gotta love it. By the way, you want to know what's more alarming than a police officer that's received an award from Med and then caught for drunk driving?
I do want to know.
A pilot on your Frontier flight that's pulled off the flight by police right before you're about to take off.
No.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, we're into scary stuff today on Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. You heard me right. There was a whole flight of people. First of all, flying Frontier is scary enough. I mean, I'm just saying you're already not willing to reach into your pocket and pay a few extra bucks to fly a more expensive airline.
Yeah.
So you've taken your life into your hands by flying Frontier, and you're sitting on the plane and going, please, God, just let me live through this flight. And then you see a squad car pull up to your plane, right? And they come on board to your plane, and already you're worried and thinking, okay, do I have warrants? And then they come onto the plane, and they don't come into the general population of the plane there, but then they take a left and go into the cabin.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah, and they pull your pilot off. Right? It happened in Houston, Jess. Oh. A Frontier Airlines crew member was arrested at George Bush Intercontinental Airport. I forgot they have a title at that airport, causing the cancellation of flight 3195 to Dallas-Fort Worth. The pilot was arrested at George Bush Intercontinental Airport on August 1st, according to the Houston Police Department. Officers informed by DFW law enforcement boarded the aircraft at around 4 p.m. and identified the pilot as 45-year-old Seymour Walker. Seymour walking to jail, more like it. He was wanted on an assault family violence warrant issued by the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport Department of Public Safety. Walker was taken into custody without incident before passengers began boarding. So they hadn't even, okay, I erased the former scenario. You're in line about to get into the plane. and they get on board and take the pilot off. Now you're like, who's flying the plane?
Yeah, nobody.
Right. So
You're just SOL.
do you like look at each other while you're in line and go, do you know how to do this? Is the flight attendant going to take this deal over? Weird. Frontier Airlines confirmed that on August 1st, a crew member was taken into custody by officers at IAH in Houston. The incident happened just before the start of boarding for Flight 3195, which is scheduled to travel from IAH to Dallas-Fort Worth. Due to the absence of an immediate replacement crew member, Frontier Airlines canceled the flight. So imagine you're on your way and the flight's canceled. It's done. Passengers affected by the cancellation were given several options, including a full refund, flight credit, or reaccommodation on the next available Frontier flight later that evening. Additionally, the airline provided a $100 flight voucher and overnight hotel accommodations as necessary. Well, at least they gave them the accommodation.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, we're sorry. Our pilot abuses his family. Would you like a hotel room? I'm just wondering. Yeah. Saturday afternoon, court records indicated that Walker had bonded out of custody. So he actually got out of jail on Saturday afternoon. I wonder if he was able to come back to his job, if they let him.
He's like, I'm ready to go now.
Yeah, I'm ready to fly.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. So what a weird story. Got a couple of statue sculpture stories for you here, Jess, on Dumb Crime Stupid Criminals. You ready for this? We start with the iconic I-96 Orange Man sculpture. I believe this is in Syracuse. So we finally know who cut down the iconic I-96 Orange Man sculpture. I'll tell you in a second who did it. Sometimes we need to look inside, Jess. Huge clue.
Inside ourselves or inside the sculpture?
No, not inside the sculpture. Inside ourselves.
Okay.
Not inside the sculpture. There's nobody hiding in it. This isn't a horror movie. Hiding inside the sculpture. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to Michigan. We're going to Lyon Township, Michigan. There's a new twist in the case of a beloved landmark's disappearance. The man in the city sculpture, also known as the Orange Man on the Hill sculpture, disappeared in early July. At the same time, artist John Sauve told Local 4 it was the work of vandals, which would make sense. Most sculptures that are felled, it's done by vandals.
Right.
After the story aired, Sauve received a letter from Lyon Township attorneys informing him it was the township that tore down the sculpture. The whole damn town.
Why?
Well, I'm about to tell you. It's the worst excuse ever, Jess. You ready for this?
Yeah.
The township actually sent me a letter saying, no, you've been telling everyone it's vandalism. It was us. This is straight out of an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
It is.
And I was like, whoa, thanks for telling me. Sauve showed Local 4 a copy of the letter that included reasons for removing the sculpture. The township received numerous complaints from residents who found the sculpture inappropriate and frightening to their children.
I need to Google this. I don't know what it is.
It's the dumbest reason ever. Just Google the Orange Man sculpture in Lyon Township, Michigan. They know it's mine. Why not a quick phone call? Sauve said. Why not a quick phone call? I love it. I would have been more than happy to work out a solution. Whatever that solution is, it's better to work with me than cut it down and not tell me. That actually makes perfect sense. The letter said the township made contact with individuals to move the sculpture. However, the letter does not specify the identity of those individuals contacted. Sauve is on the clock to decide his next move, as the township has said it has until Wednesday to remove the 2,000-pound sculpture. Otherwise, the township will cut it into pieces and remove it. It's disheartening, it's challenging, it's expensive, Sauve said. There's lots of things that I have to do, either make this go back up or go somewhere else. Local 4 reached out to Lyon Township Supervisor John Dolan for comment, but did not hear back. I actually have I think I have a picture of it in pieces here.
I don't understand. I have a picture of it not in pieces, and
Right.
it's not scary.
No. Right. Does that look scary to you? It's just
No.
yeah, if you're looking at it on video, just showed you, it looks like a cutout picture of the Marlboro Man.
Honestly, those kids need to toughen up. They need to send them over to my house. I'll show them how to be scared.
You'll have them out there building a second deck is what you'll do. I'm just saying.
You know it.
Right. Yeah,
We'll watch some, It or Shining while we're doing it.
that's right. Toughen them up the right way there, kid. Yeah. Isn't that bizarre? That
Super weird.
cutout cowboy scared my kid. So we're going to cut down your statue.
Your kid is a weenie.
Yes. It's
Not scary.
a peenie. And they need more of them over there in LA.
They need peonies.
They need peonies over there. Our second statue story has to do with a man getting 15 years in prison for stealing a Jackie Robinson statue.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I could see why. Jackie Robinson is, an uplifting person in our lexicon. But you don't want to steal the statue. I mean, the statue's for everybody, not just you.
Right.
I mean, if you want one, get a little replica, put it on your mantle.
Yeah, get a little bobblehead one that you put in your car and it just kind of bops around.
Not a bobblehead. I mean, an actual statue, something, that has a little grace to it, not a Jackie Robinson bobblehead. I mean, you can get that.
I would want.
You can get that on any ballpark on Jackie Robinson Day. I mean, you can get that for free. Just buy a ticket.
Oh, okay.
The Kansas man who pleaded guilty to stealing a Jackie Robinson statue from a Wichita Youth Baseball League earlier this year was sentenced to Friday to 15 years in prison for multiple cases, according to police. 45-year-old Ricky Alderete pleaded guilty in May to theft related to the January disappearance of the statue and other charges. He faced more than 19 years. 19 years.
That's crazy.
Yet you only get 2 for punching out a country sheriff.
I was going to say, I think people have killed people and gotten less time.
Yeah. Well, it's Jackie Robinson. The prosecutor's office has said Alderete would be forced to pay $41,500 to League 42, who's a youth baseball organization named after the Brooklyn Dodgers legend. There have been no more arrests connected to the case, but surveillance video showed at least 2 other people present when the statue was cut from its stand, which left the bronze replicas of Robinson's cleats behind. Oh, they cut them off right at Jackie Robinson's feet.
What?
Which was the best.
That's not cool.
That was the best part of Jackie Robinson. He was that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't cut off Jackie Robinson's feet. Parts of the statue were later found charred from a fire in another park 7 miles away. Police have maintained they don't believe the crime to be racially motivated, but instead by the financial gain of scrapping common metal. So they scrapped the metal of Jackie Robinson.
That's even less cool.
I know, right? A police affidavit obtained by ESPN said that days after the arrest, Alderete ran from police and entered a man's home. The other man eventually escaped and got in touch with police, leading to Alderete's arrest. A new statue will be unveiled Monday at Wichita's McAdams Park, where League 42 plays its games. Art Castings of Colorado, an art foundry 50 miles outside of Denver, created the replacement statue. The artist, John Parsons, died in 2022, but the foundry is using his original mold. Major League Baseball paid for the statue's replacement. So there you go. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Our next story. I can't believe I'm going to read this story. I just realized what this story said. It got me. It got me a little, Jess. We're going to Cape Canaveral, Florida. You gotta love Florida. I saw a video on TikTok. Every once in a while you scroll through, you get lost in the rabbit hole of TikTok.
Yeah.
There's a guy on there who he gets these odd signs from his viewers, and he's like, "What are you people doing in Florida?" And it's like, no. It says something. There's a sign for the gators in Florida. It's no feeding or poking the gators. And he's like, "What are you people doing to the gators in Florida?" This man in Florida was doing something weird to a gator in Florida, and he got arrested for it.
Oh no.
We're not in the not safe for work category yet, so don't go there, Jess. Okay.
That's a very brave man if that's what he was doing.
Boy, that's gator wrestling at its best, if that's what he was doing. But this elderly man was arrested in Cape Canaveral and is accused of lassoing a 9-foot gator and tethering it to a pole.
Wow. That's
What?
fancy though. He can lasso it.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Wonder Woman he ain't. I mean, he might have seen the movies and impressed by the feat, but we go to Cape Canaveral, Florida, where there's a troubling trap in Central Florida after authorities said an elderly man had no business tying up a gator as he went after the reptile. 71-year-old Robert Collin, not Robert Conlon, who was on the show last week. different guy.
Very close, but not the same.
Very close, but not the same. Accused of an illegal reptile roundup after the alligator was caught in a lasso in a canal. The gator was seen with a rope around its mouth and tethered to a pole in Cape Canaveral. I decided, well, maybe I can catch it and keep it here because they can't monitor it for 24 hours, and then I'll help them out, said Colin. So he's only trying to help the authorities. According to the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, Colin was the man responsible. It all happened Wednesday morning while Colin said he was trying to protect turtles in the canal. So he did have a bigger purpose. He didn't want the gator to eat the turtles. So he lassoed the gator around the mouth and tied him to a pole.
He's a hero.
Sure.
He's a gator cowboy hero.
Sure. Tom Mixie ain't. Boy, that's an old joke. I know that. It all happened Wednesday morning. And he said this alligator appeared, and some of the public told me that they're eating the turtles, he said. Using a clothesline, deputies said. Okay, so he went MacGyver on the bit.
That's impressive.
It is. He grabbed a clothesline. Colin was able to capture the 9-foot reptile by lassoing his jaw. They said I lassoed it. I didn't lasso it. I put it down and made the motion for it up and down at the end of the rope, Colin said. He must have thought it was a turtle because turtles are white underneath, and he bit at it. And when he bit it, I trapped himself in the top of the snoot. So basically, he bit down on what he thought was a turtle, is what he's saying. So the gator went to bite down on what he thought was a turtle. And when he did, he just wrapped this clothesline around his snoot.
Wow. It's very brave.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be close enough to a snoot of an alligator to wrap anything around it.
Jess, I don't know. How many times have you been to Florida?
Actually, never.
Okay. What you learned about Floridians, they're, pardon the language, are goddamn nuts. The heat drives them nuts.
That's what I've gathered from doing this show with you.
They're out of their goddamn mind. So I think they think gators are dogs. They have no fear. They just go right up to them, pat them on the head. There you go, Sparky. And then they tie up they don't care. You see them on the road all the time. They don't care. So after the gator was trapped, Colin said he called 911. Deputies said he told them that he found the gator trapped there. Boy, there's the biggest lie in the history of it. By the way, did I scare the puppy when I said gator and puppy at the same time? Look at the look right now.
I know. She's scared. It's because of the rain outside.
Is it?
She doesn't like it.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say gator and puppy at the same time either. I might have.
She's gonna eat you. Gator's gonna eat you.
No, gator.
Oh, she's gonna eat the gator. Did you see that big
Yeah,
mouth?
I did.
She's
Yeah.
safe.
Gator meat's pretty good. You ever taken the puppy out for gator meat at the state fair?
No.
It's a little rubbery, but it's good. If it's hot off the fryer, it's pretty good.
Is it? And they actually serve it at the fair?
Yeah.
Gator meat?
Gator meat.
Yeah.
You ever had it?
Mm-mm.
You have to try it this year. Give it a try. So Colin said he found the gator trapped there. However, surveillance video showed that he was the one who did the trapping. Colin was arrested for injuring a gator without authority and was released on bond. Since he didn't have a permit or wasn't a licensed trapper with the state of Florida, that's where the charges come from, said Brevard County Sheriff's Office Deputy Todd Goodyear, which sounds like a made-up name, I know. You're not allowed to remove a gator, Sheriff Goodyear went on to say. Ultimately, officials said the gator had to be euthanized. Really? You had to euthanize a gator because you tied up his snoot?
That's sad. I wonder if he was damaged from it.
I don't know. Maybe they tied up his...
Hmm.
One more story before the not safe for work part of our program has to do with a story from South Carolina. The headline is Seasonings Beatings from South Carolina. And of course, we're talking. Yeah, isn't that a good one? It has to do with the lifelong battle between chicken and beef.
Okay.
And what you use on it, I guess. Two siblings get into it over chicken and beef and what you put on it, evidently. A wild domestic brawl in South Carolina was touched off when one combatant was challenged as to why he didn't season the chicken that was cooking so it could crust up. God.
Nothing like some crusty chicken.
Some crusty chicken. Yeah, that doesn't sound good at all. It doesn't sound appetizing in the slightest. According to investigators, cops responded Sunday to a melee at a residence in Georgetown, which is a city 40 miles south of Myrtle Beach. Cops say that 27-year-old Anthony Harper was preparing chicken when his sister, 25-year-old Hope, and another person questioned him about the food seasoning. Anthony reportedly replied, "I know how to cook chicken, and Grammy was going to season the chicken."
Just like that.
Just like that. In response, cops say Hope declared, "You're not human. You're a dumb dog."
That's great.
Yeah. I just imagine this is how it went down in South Carolina. Except for probably wasn't said that fast. What followed was a violent kitchen scuffle between the siblings. During the scrum, two victims, including a third Harper sibling, were scratched on the arms because it was a slap fight, evidently. With the brawl in progress, a 26-year-old man exited the kitchen and fired a 9mm handgun into the residence's ceiling to try to make the assaultive behavior stop and force those involved to separate. Because after all, you do separate a slap fight with a 9mm handgun.
Wow. I was seriously just listening, thinking, how did this make it into the news? Like their siblings slapping each other over crusty chicken, and then he brought out a gun and it was all cleared up.
That's right. The weapon's discharge, however, did not have the desired effects, because when you're having a good slap fight over chicken, boy, you're into it. Hope allegedly grabbed a steak knife and chased after her brother, who declared, "She's gonna kill me." At this point, the pair's grandmother exited her room. Oh, grandma's involved now.
Oh, now you are in trouble.
That's right. Grandma grabbed a broom. She had broom in hand. And when grandma's got broom in hand, y'all's fucked. That's what we say in South Carolina. And she waved it at Hope until she walked away and put the knife back in the kitchen. Because when grandma's got a broom beats knife. We all know that. That's South Carolina rules right there.
If grandma's wielding it, yes.
Yes, yeah. With his sister now unarmed, Anthony allegedly grabbed a can of Raid.
What is happening?
I don't know. I mean, she put the knife down. Why are we grabbing the Raid? Is it because...
Let it go, man.
Is it because Hope's have passed? I mean, so Anthony grabs the can of Raid and sprayed Hope in the face and neck with it.
Oh my gosh. Anthony's crazy.
Yeah. Hope countered by seizing the bug killer and spraying Anthony across his whole body. Now we got a raid party going on.
Oh no.
I think Grandma needs to beat them all with the broom. Is what
I think so too.
the Harpers asked to press charges against each other at this point. The Scratch sibling, a 23-year-old woman, wanted Anthony arrested for leaving her with visible injury to her arms. Anthony was charged with a pair of assault and battery counts, while his sister was busted on a single assault and battery rap. The Harpers each were released on bond from the county jail on Tuesday afternoon. The man who fired the warning shot was not charged. I don't know. The ceiling wasn't going to charge or file charges at all, nor was the broom wielding grandma because, Granny was just trying to keep the peace. By the way, here's the picture of the brother and the sister who loved to go after each other in the raid. The one brother, by the way, looks like a redneck Gerard Depardieu.
Yes.
Doesn't he?
Just like in that movie, No Country for Old Men, right?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So there you go. I don't know who the sister looks like. The sister. Oh, you know what? The sister looks like white trash goop girl. Yeah, like Gwyneth Paltrow, white trash Gwyneth Paltrow.
No.
Yeah, doesn't she? Like
I mean, maybe.
little fat in the face, but yeah, like white trash Gwyneth Paltrow.
Maybe.
So
She needs a highlight there.
she does need a little bit. Yeah,
Her roots are about 5 inches long.
they are, aren't they?
Not that I'm judging. I mean,
well, judging McJudgerton. Yeah.
I mean, it's their mugshot. What are you gonna do?
I mean, they're spending all their money on raid. I mean, so in crusty chicken. So
What a weird thing to get so mad about.
no, Grandma says it's chicken's supposed to be crusty. Get that chicken nice and crusty. Otherwise, I'm gonna beat you and spray you with raid. Priorities, people.
Oh, I hope they were intoxicated. I hope that wasn't a sober fight.
I think that was a sober fight, Jess.
Nuts.
Fights get more they get more violent when you're drunk in South Carolina. Just saying.
Do they?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I'm just guessing. This is just basic human psychology, people. All right. Our last story before the not safe for work portion of our program has to do with a Florida deputy who was likely sleeping while the inmate escaped, causing a hospital lockdown and a manhunt.
Aw, it's taking a little nappy poo.
Little nappy poo. This has to do with dumb crimes and sleepy cops, evidently. This is. We go to Flagler County, Florida. The deputy assigned to guard the inmate who faked an injury and escaped the hospital was likely sleeping. This, according to an investigation update from the Flagler County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office said these policy violations by Deputy Tyreek Harper led to the escape of Anthony Romine on July 27th. Additionally, officials said Romine wasn't properly restrained while in the hospital. Harper, who was hired by the Flagler County Sheriff's Office on June 2021, was relieved of law enforcement duties on the day of the escape while a preliminary review was conducted. A few days later, he resigned ahead of a formal internal investigation. Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staley said the agency will review the incident to determine how Harper was distracted, that's quote unquote, resulting in Romine's alleged escape. A review of this incident indicates there was a failure to follow policies that are designed to keep the community safe and an inmate in custody when they are taken to an outside facility for medical treatment, said Chief of Staff Mark Stowbridge. Fortunately, Romine was apprehended and no additional crimes were committed by him in his escape attempt. Sheriff Staley expects all deputies will follow our policies and not sleep while on duty. That's probably a big thing. Don't sleep while on duty.
No naps.
Rule number one, don't, especially around, escapees or inmates or, people who might, I don't know, stab you in the neck while you're doing it. Our agency motto is an honor to serve, a duty to protect. This is a direct quote from them. And that did not occur in this incident by Deputy Harper or Dupity. Dupity? Inmate Anthony Romine escaped Advent Health Palm Coast on July 27th while he was there for treatment after faking an injury to escape to his home state of Ohio, according to deputies. After a hospital lockdown and a 7-hour manhunt, deputies said the 29-year-old was tracked and located by a canine team underneath foliage and underbrush in the woods by the Amoco gas station just off Interstate 95 in Palm Coast. He was taken back into custody and arrested on a felony warrant for his escape, battery on a law enforcement officer, and resisting without violence. We worked until we got him. I commend our team for staying on his trail and the community for seeing something, saying something until this dirt bag was captured, said Sheriff Staley. Boy, he's really animated when he talks about this.
Called him out as a dirt bag.
Dirt bag. Too bad he didn't call his officer that for falling asleep. All he accomplished was to add additional arrests to his list of crimes and got bitten by our canine, who gets a special treat for taking a bite out of crime. Boy, he went a gruff on it, didn't he? When he tried to flee again. Fortunately, no one was hurt except this dirtbag who was crying after he was caught by our canine. Boy, he used dirtbag twice.
He really means it.
He does. He's seriously pissed off. Romine was originally arrested on July 3rd on a felony warrant for petty theft, violation of pretrial release, and 2 counts of counterfeit. Well, okay, he's a criminal, but dirtbag? I mean, that's a little
Just making bad choices.
Yeah, exactly, Jess. He made bad choices with his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but dirtbag? I mean,
pretty harsh. Twice.
Killing kids in the street, dirtbag,
Yeah.
Peddling drugs in front of a school, dirtbag.
Yeah, for sure. Dirtbag.
Okay. All right, we're on our not safe for work part of our program. If you've got kids around, shuffle them off to Buffalo. If you're listening at work, put in your headphones or your earbuds or whatever, so the boss doesn't hear or your fellow employees. It's time now to get down and dirty. Here we go. We start in Ohio, where a fraudster scams an Ohio woman into disrobing. Interesting. Gift of gab. Gotta like it. Here we go. Cops suspect that this humiliated victim was bilked for also $5,900 as well.
Wait, think he got money from her and he got her to get naked?
Yeah.
Wow, this is impressive.
I know, right? A scam that began with a spoofed call ended with an Ohio woman being swindled out of about $6,000 and then tricked into disrobing so that she could verify her identity via a FaceTime call with the cruel fraudster.
What?
Wait a minute. I got to learn how to do this. I got to learn how to do this. This is impressive. The victim told police in Mayfield Heights, a Cleveland suburb, that evidently they're gullible in Cleveland, that she received a call last Tuesday from a number that appeared to be the customer service line for Huntington Bank, an Ohio-based financial institution. They also took over all of TCF Bank's customers here in Minnesota. So this will work. Oh, this will work in Minnesota, evidently.
Okay.
Yeah. So find a cute girl in Minnesota and call her up and tell her she needs to use FaceTime. Just saying. The mail caller, who spoke with an accent, told the woman that there was a potential fraudulent charge pending on her account. To safeguard her money, the purported bank employee said she would have to move her funds into a different account to avoid her money being stolen. Oh, that's clever.
Mm-hmm.
That is clever. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. With the scam artist still on the phone, the woman went to a local Huntington Bank branch and withdrew $6,000. Oh, come on. So she didn't double check with the bank at that point?
Oh, I feel bad for her. I don't want to shame her for not making smart choices.
That's gullible. She then was directed to a nearby Chase Bank ATM where she deposited the cash into a Chase debit card via her iPhone's Apple Pay feature.
Oh, honey.
Man. After having spent 2 hours on the phone with the man, way too long, by the way, the woman whose name was redacted from the police report returned home and got another call from the fraudster who wanted to FaceTime with her. The man, who did not have his camera on, asked the big mistake, asked the woman to provide them with a full body scan and verify her identity due to a failed transaction.
What on earth? I feel so bad for this person. How are you that gullible?
The woman told cops that she undressed and spun in circles on FaceTime to confirm her identity.
What?
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, this poor girl.
When the voice on the other end began to laugh, the woman realized she had been scammed and humiliated to boot.
Oh,
The guy couldn't hold it. He didn't even
that's a bad criminal. That's a bad man.
he couldn't even put it on mute. Jesus. Well, police have subpoenaed various bank records. The likelihood of identifying the perp, probably working from a call center in India, or remote. Prior to the woman being defrauded, the local sheriff had warned that area residents had been receiving scam phone calls from the same spoofed Huntington Bank number. The bank, cops noted, advised that customer service will never reach out with a telephone call requesting information regarding your account.
Yeah, they won't. They'll also never ask you to get naked and spin in circles.
No, although I've tried with Huntington Bank to get them to do that with me, and they never will.
He's fully willing participant, standing there in the aisle or the checkout lane.
Yeah, especially if she's cute, but doesn't. And finally, by the way, if your puppy's still there, cover her ears.
Okay.
Okay. This one is a dumb crime, stupid puppy.
Oh no.
This doggy was rushed to the vet after eating a bunch of weed and getting high on the beach, and then acting like he was away with the fairies.
Aw,
That's how we end today's dumb crime, stupid criminals.
probably kind of cute.
It is a little cute, yeah. A dog owner has issued a warning after his dog accidentally ate some cannabis during a beach walk and ended up being stoned.
Aw.
59-year-old Stephen Davidson said Pooch Oscar started acting strangely after their unusual outing in Sheerness, Kent on Saturday, July 27th. The West Highland Terrier, he's the cutest ever, who's typically lovable and clingy, had become lethargic and away with the fairies. Take a look at this little guy.
Oh, he is the cutest.
Isn't he? It's probably even cuter when he's stoned to the bejesus. Just saying.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, little man. Look at he's all, I'll take a hit if you will. 8-year-old Oscar had also stopped drinking water, making a concerned Stephen fearful that the family pet could have been dehydrated and died. Stephen phoned an out-of-hours vet and rushed Oscar to the PDSA at Gillingham Business Park. Here, the vet made a startling discovery, revealing that Oscar had consumed the Class B drug. Stephen said they put something down his throat to see if he would gag straight away, but he didn't. There was a delay. That's when they said he had been drugged. According to the PDSA, signs of intoxication in dogs can begin 30 to 90 minutes after cannabis had been eaten. Take a look at this little guy. Look at him, Jess. Look at how cute he is.
I love him.
Yeah, little Oscar.
He's the cutest.
A little scamp. He just loves getting high. He was like, ruh-roh, is that weed? Effects can include incontinence, dilated pupils, a slow heart rate, and looking vacant. It's pretty much me on a Saturday. I'm just saying,
Like looking vacant.
looking vacant. Isn't that most dogs looking vacant? Right? Dogs may also experience a startled reaction when they appear drowsy and begin to fall over, but suddenly catch their balance. We used to have a dog in college that would drink beer out of a bowl. Just saying, he would. He loved beer.
Life of the party.
He had 3 legs, though. I mean, he deserved a drink.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, he lost his leg in a bus accident. So,
poor guy.
I mean, if you got hit by a bus, don't you deserve to drink as much as you want?
I mean, yeah, if you really like beer,
Yeah, he did. He loved beer.
life's short, especially when you're a dog.
That's right. More beer. I know people are going to be like, that's abuse. No, he got abused by a bus. Probably was in a lot of pain. Probably needed the beer. Just saying. To clear the cannabis from his system, Oscar had to remain at the vet's overnight, where he was kept on a drip and given charcoal medication. I didn't know charcoal got rid of cannabis. Maybe it does for dogs.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard of that either. I don't know a lot of dogs that have been high, though. So.
I don't see a lot of dogs with joints hanging out of their mouths,
I don't know the protocol.
Wearing berets, playing beatnik music. I mean, it's not common. He has since made a full recovery and is back to happily rolling on his tummy to be stroked. Oh, Oscar. But the treatment the small white terrier received has resulted in a hefty bill. Are you ready for this?
I bet. Yeah.
Stephen had to pay more than 900 pounds for the out-of-hours care.
Ouch.
All because he did some edibles. Although he believes he will be able to claim this back on his pet insurance. Pet insurance covers getting high for a dog.
Good to know.
His more pressing concern is where he will walk Oscar from now on, as he feels wary about taking him back to the Sheerness seafront, just 20 minutes from his home. Stephen said, it's so bad in this town. People are just smoking it anywhere, and they now throw it on the ground. 59-year-old says he will eventually return to his usual dog walking spot, but has spoken out to warn other owners of what to look out for. He said, I just want people to be extra careful of what their dogs pick up and be aware of any dangers when walking them. Stephen also warns owners to seek help as soon as possible if their pups start acting strangely. PDSA said that while they have seen cases of cannabis intoxication in dogs, it does thankfully remain an uncommon issue. Don't let your dogs get high on their own supply, Jess. You don't want them going to the wrong side of the law.
No, I'm going to keep these puppies safe.
That's right. And that's Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals for today. So you got 2 books that are available for pre-sale. Notice I'm doing this because I'm high on my own supply right now. Giving you a sign. And you've got trips that are still available right now?
Yeah, the tickets are selling quickly for the Palmer House event in November. You guys want to come? There is a discount code specially for you, Darkness20 for 20% off your tickets.
Right on, right on. So check that out. We'll also have a link to the trips at Ghost Stories Inc. And we'll have a link to Jess's website, so you can go get those books as well in the description of this show. I want to thank Jeff Ignatowski for being on the show today. The book is fabulous, folks. You want to go check it out right now. The book is Beyond the Headlines: True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. A book not just about serial killers, but gives you 3 myths, 1 legend on each serial killer. Check it out. Again, I went through it in one sitting. Very quick book, and very interesting book. A lot of interesting facts you may not have known about these different serial killers and famous serial killers. That's the first of 3 books that will eventually come out by Jeff. You heard him talk about those other books here on the program today. So go ahead and pick up that book today. That'll do it for today's program. Tomorrow on the big show, supernatural news, and we have a very interesting guest on Thursday. We'll tell you more about him tomorrow on the big program. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News. Thanks for joining Jess and I today on True Crime Tuesday.
For more audio and video archives of True Crime Tuesday, please visit darknessradioshow.com. Thanks for watching.